Okay. Well, great. Welcome everybody to the Historic Review Commission meeting. Today is March 4th. Can't believe the time's passing so quickly. We'll have our roll call first. Jean Craig Pepper, absent. Dave Brennan, I'm here. Mark Tannenbaum.
Here.
Is here. Melinda Meyer.
Here.
Is here. Matthew Falcone.
Here.
Is here. Great, thank you. Is Jason Wazorek on? Who's all on? I know
Jason's not.
Jason, okay, so he's absent. And then Kathy is on. Great. And Jackie. Is there anyone online for public comment? I guess if they're not here, we don't have public comment, correct, Jackie? Because if they,
Correct.
yeah, okay.
Correct. You have to be present for public
Okay,
comment.
so there's no public comment today then, okay. We'll move forward with approval of the past meeting minutes. The agenda had shown February 6th, which should be February 5th, 2024 was the past meeting minutes. So if we want to, did everybody get a chance to review those?
Yes.
If yes, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Matthew? Matthew made a motion, and then second, Mark? Did I hear?
Yes.
Mark seconds. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Hearing none, that meeting minutes pass. Okay, we'll go to the old business first. And the first item on the agenda is reviewing and the recommendation for the Erie Historic Preservation Plan. And I know, Kathy, of course, Kathy White-Rosdick's here, and Josh Bloom from Lakota Group. So if you can hear me, would you want to, I guess the question is, we're reviewing the plan. The plan is currently, the draft is currently under review, and we just want to hear about the updates, the implementation, a lot of the things that have been added to the preservation plan, and then we'll have a discussion as needed.
First, I just want to acknowledge and thank my colleague, Nick Calagresis, who almost brought us to the finish line here. Nick decided about a month ago to take another opportunity, and we're going to miss him. So I just wanted to acknowledge that Nick is really the one, along with the rest of our staff, who brought the plan to this point. Based on just conversations I had last week with Melinda and Jackie, I thought I would do a very sort of highlights, or present just a couple of highlights from the Historic Preservation Plan report, if that's okay with you, or do you want to go immediately to sort of questions?
I think we could start with the highlights and the new additions.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Oops, disabled. Are you able to? Can you enable that?
We're enabling that now, I believe. I think you should be able to share now.
Yes, I can do it now. Yes,
Okay.
great. Okay. Okay.
We could
Are
see.
are you all able to see?
Yep.
All right, terrific. So as I said, I'm just gonna sort of starting with, or we're not moving here. There we go. Okay. So the plan lays out a historic, really one that values all of the built environment from the past, and also including from archaeological and maritime sites to buildings and structures, and also all of the cultural history of Erie, which, as in any city, continues to evolve. And these are just this is kind of the collection of types of resources that the report looks at. As I said, from archaeological to neighborhoods and residential buildings to commercial and industrial buildings. And we really start at the very beginning and kind of laying out a whole history of what's happened on the land that is Erie, from prehistoric periods to the industrial period to the present day. And this is all very familiar to you, but the report also looks at all the historic districts, the local and national register districts in Erie, as well as documents the 24 individually listed National Register buildings and structures in the city. And we acknowledge the intangible heritage of Erie, some of which is represented by festivals that take place in the city, and other intangible aspects of the cultures that have lived in Erie since its first settlement. As we move into the present day, we looked at some of the trends and data that is impacting preservation in Erie. A couple of those are highlighted, particularly population change, which you know has been declining for about the last 40 or 50 years. And that is a preservation issue because it has decreased the housing demand in the city. And so that's one of the things that we're confronting in terms of neighborhood preservation. There has been a decline in homeownership rates in the city. And so one of the things that the plan tries to address is how do you reinforce that? And how do you create more owner-occupied residences, because owner occupancy helps in maintenance and preservation of those buildings, and creates stable neighborhoods and strengthens the social fabric of the city. Among the things we looked at just in data from the National Register districts in the city was the racial and ethnic makeup of those neighborhoods. It's interesting that they pretty closely parallel the overall population of the city. So they are not particularly richer or poorer, and not particularly different in their racial and ethnic composition. You all sitting on the Historic Review Commission know that what your primary responsibilities are as a commission, and a lot of it has to do with looking at certificates of appropriateness for maintenance and other building materials and replacement materials, maintaining a historic inventory of historic resources, and accommodating hardship when needed, and enforcing the historic preservation ordinance, as well as educating the public and engaging the public in preservation. So the plan itself has 6 main goals or themes, and I'm just listing them here as highlights, but there's a lot more detail in the report. And so they're labeled A through F, I think, 6, right? So first is identifying Erie's historic and cultural heritage, which is documenting, designating historic buildings and cultural resources. B is telling Erie's diverse stories, with the goal of implementing programs and activities that promote the history and social significance of Erie's diverse peoples. C is protecting and conserving places, implementing clear policies and procedures for protecting Erie's heritage resources. D, investing in historic assets, so initiating programs that stimulate investment in historic residential and commercial properties. E is engaging the community, and this is the goal of making sure that the public really understands the purpose of preservation and is involved in that process. And F is managing the program, which is really kind of the administrative aspect of making sure that the commission and its partners have the resources that they need to effectively manage preservation programs in Erie. The plan document breaks down each of these into multiple initiatives that support each of these goals, which we're not going to go through right here. But it also lays out the first 5 years of activities recommended for the commission. And we'll just look at the first year. We'll just look at the first year of those activities, which are which I know you're working on currently. The city is working on hiring a new preservation planner, and so in this first year, the recommendations involve making sure that city staff, the new preservation planner in particular, can participate in training activities, and will conduct an orientation session for the new historic review commission members. And also in the first year is to begin a fuller documentation of Erie's historic resources. So this involves consulting with the Pennsylvania SHPO and other partners on planning and organizing a citywide survey, identifying funding resources for that survey, creating an RFP, and the steps that follow that. And the third category of work recommended for the commission in this year one is to create, advance community engagement, which, and there was a lot of community engagement through this process, but to create a comprehensive municipal historic preservation webpage, and to prepare collateral materials on Erie's National Register districts and incentive programs and other relevant information, produce a that is kind of a very fast and very high level run through of what's contained in the 200 pages of the report. But I'm happy to have a conversation about any of that or talk about any of the aspects that you guys would like to at this point.
Great, thank you, Josh.
And I'll take this off share unless there's something you want me to go back to.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. Hopefully you can hear me. We'll go through some questions if the commission has questions right now. Are there any questions by any of the commission members that Josh is available for those questions now if you have a question?
The only, I did want to make just two comments. One is, Josh, I think your team has done a really amazing job with this document. It's really quite extensive. And so I know it hasn't been easy. There have been changes in staffing here at the city. There have been changes of staffing at Lakota Group. And so the work that you've done to kind of pull materials together and maintain consistency throughout the process is deeply appreciated. And so I just wanted to note that your efforts, valiant efforts, are acknowledged here in doing that.
I just want to say that I really appreciate that. We all really appreciate that, and we appreciate you, Melinda, for your consistent effort on this as well.
2 thumbs up. 2 is, I did note that there were a couple of names missing from the steering committee, and I do apologize for not noting those earlier. I'm hoping that I can just send those to you, and we can rectify those omissions. And again, apologies for not noting them earlier. And 3 is more of a broad question, and that is, in looking forward to issuing the RFP for the citywide historic resource survey, we ultimately may find that the funding that is currently in place is consistent with implementing all 4, 5, 6 phases of the plan or of the survey work. And I noted that the action or implementation plan, so much of it breaks out the survey work into multiple years. And just wanted to make note that there has been discussion specifically with the PA SHPO that the funding that is in place may actually allow us to implement all phases of that survey right out of the gate. It may not. I just kind of wanted to throw that out because so much space in the action plan is really designated to the survey work. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That would be fantastic.
Any other questions or comments regarding the plan? You good? I think the most exciting part about me is the implementation plan and to really dig into it. And we could talk later about how we're going to do that, whether it be committees or whatever to attack certain items, or do we work as a team. So, but that'll be an important discussion to have now that we have the plan in front of us. We'll going through the approval process to get that, get all the approvals that are needed. But yeah, I think it's exciting to have in place, and I agree with Melinda also. Well done job, and I know Melinda, thank you for. I know you've been spending a lot of your time with the steering committee and really putting a lot into this. So I thank you also, and of course Josh. So, okay. Any final comments or questions for Josh? Last call. Oh, here.
Jackie mentioned on her way out that we would need to take a formal motion, a formal vote to recommend. I don't know if that happens in old business or new business, just want to make sure that that's
I would, excuse me, I would move that we make a positive recommendation to adopt the Erie Historic Preservation Plan to City Council.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Melinda, second. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So approved. Okay. Well, I think that's it. We'll continue on with our agenda here. The next item is the CLG mini grants for the design guidelines. You just step still there.
Do we want
Which I'm happy to.
to stay on?
It's up to Josh.
Would you like to stay on, Josh? You're welcome to, but I can shut this down.
Well, I think, does Kathy still need it?
Don't kick me off, Mark.
I'm happy to stay on. So
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right.
So I'm Karen McKenna. I'm, for the next 2 days, the city's grant writer, and I'm working on the mini grant and also CLG scholarship to get training for the new planner and some general training for the committee in general. For the mini grants, I had a few questions. I have it kind of fleshed out, but I need a little more of your expertise to make it sound like we know what we're talking about.
Okay.
Jackie told me that we are looking to create design guidelines, and we probably would hire a consultant to do this.
Correct.
Okay. Why are design guidelines important, and how do they benefit the community?
Well, you're saying relative to historic buildings?
Or yeah, as far as the work of this.
Well, the goal is to help people improve their home, but in the process, making sure that they are respectful and maintain as much as they can the historic accuracy of the building.
So accuracy, integrity,
Yes, and all things that we need to create, you know, what that constitutes, and then stick with it, because, you know, you can't say that you can't do a certain type of window or whatever without a policy.
Yeah, consistency and
Consistency,
the
yeah.
appropriateness that we're going to be getting. We're going to get into those questions about what's in line, what's not in line, and we need a standard that's got to kind of set that bar into that describes it further, so it's not just coming out of our heads somewhere, that it's written and described.
okay, so it's a document that you can go back to and say, you know, we've done a lot of research on what these buildings are, what they were, how they contributed, how they still contribute, and how we need to maintain the integrity of past to present.
Yes.
And I think even the general public could, just if they're looking to renovate their house, maybe it has nothing to do with us, that they would be able to have a resource to go to find out what type of windows or what type of roof or whatever on their improvement. And so I think it'll help anybody in improving their home or renovating.
Right, not even someone asking,
Right.
not just people
Correct.
asking for a grant.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a searchable document for the public.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so really the scope of this is to create the RFP, go through the bid process. That's actually a requirement of grant, and hire the consultant and get this document delivered in a format that we can get
Approval.
approval and up on the public website, so it's
Yes.
publicly? Okay, good. I guess that's the deliverables and the outcomes. Why do we need a grant to do this?
It's incredibly complicated and detailed work. And it requires somebody who has a thorough understanding of National Register guidelines and Secretary of Interior standards in order to be able to use those and engage with the public.
To Matthew's point, we talked about this last month, and that there's actually probably not somebody even in the city of Erie that can do it. They don't have the credentials and skill set.
What was the U.S. Department of Interior reference?
Yeah,
Parks and
so the National Park Service has what they called design guidelines that are set up by the Secretary of the Interior. And those are very kind of high-level guidelines that are meant to be universally applicable, that the federal government uses. But that's a good kind of jumping-off point to tailor guidelines specifically for community landmarks and historic districts. So part of this, I would imagine, would involve a community engagement process where they're able to do listening sessions and discussions with, like, either here or with members of the community to understand what's important to them, specifically for a district or a landmark, and then kind of help tailor those guidelines to that resource.
And that helps the guidelines stand up to scrutiny
right.
if we would ever need them to do that.
It helps the public because it creates very clear standards and expectations up front. And it also helps us as a commission because we have already adopted rules that are in place. And so when projects would come up for us, we're able to reference the guidelines that are already established to look at that project through those guidelines, like through the lens of those guidelines.
Okay, and having these established within the community, should somebody want to make drastic changes or something like that, it's not like we're just randomly saying, no, you can't do that.
Correct.
It's like, we've looked at this and we have these guidelines in place because, and this is why we're asking you not to. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, all the benefits will be part of the plan, you know, why we're doing this, it'll be all described in the written description somewhere. in that document.
And to some degree, if I could jump into this, is that there's a discernible downside for the fact that this hasn't been in place for decades, and that many of these properties are no longer existent or damaged beyond recognition, and you can see that. And while some people could argue it's too little too late, truth is, it's still a good thing. And there's a need.
Otherwise, it's a loss, really, to the community.
Continually, you know.
Yeah.
So Karen, there are other communities in Erie County that have already developed design guidelines for their communities. There is language that reflects everything that has been shared today by commissioners that I could very easily provide to you,
That would be wonderful.
because it's been included in other grant applications that have been successful.
Even better.
Yes, right. All the better.
Would you say that having these guidelines in place, could they also be considered an educational tool,
Very much so.
an economic driver,
Absolutely.
anything, risk mitigation?
I mean, I think
All the above.
Yeah.
it could be a guide for people renovating their homes to ensure that they maintain the value. Because if you're replacing a porch and you're putting something that doesn't fit in, to me, it's going to be a detriment from their neighborhood. But by having these guidelines, it'll help people renovate, restore, and I think hopefully keep the values and keep bringing them up in our neighborhoods.
Yeah, I was thinking risk mitigation, kind of, so we don't have hasty demolition.
Right.
That's true.
Yes.
If a house gets too far gone and it's not renovated, not being used, then yeah, they're gonna look towards demolishing it, and we lose another building
Yeah.
and
And I think
more income.
it is different, but today in Erie, I mean, that's not the same thing we're talking about, but there's kind of a adjacent issue is that you can get a demolition permit in Erie and tear the house down that day. There's no process. I don't think there's a process to do that.
Well, it's an application, but you
Right,
could
but
do it
once-
one day.
But you can do it in one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So it's an adjacent problem. It's not solved by this particular document, but I think there's an existing problem that is holistic. This might solve a piece of the problem. Surprising, right? Usually there's a review.
So will the guidelines help with that at all? To create, if your building or whatever is X amount years old or in such and such a neighborhood, that it couldn't be, do guidelines step that close to a legal
No,
document?
I was gonna say, it's
it's
adjacent.
more about how to do something rather than if or when. So what would establish kind of a review period is being designated as a historic landmark or a historic district. And then any kind of changes would have to come before this commission. And so there's then like a de facto review period. But the guidelines is what helps us kind of understand different projects. And I think speaking at least to demolition, it would help us understand how to go about treating historic resources in different neighborhoods. One of the, I think, most important things that might be helpful for the grant application is that not all historic resources are the same. And having something that's tailored to a specific neighborhood, to a specific building,
Right.
is really going to be much more valuable for us as a commission and for the public to understand how to treat that resource.
That makes sense. Okay, just a couple more questions. Anybody who's gone through this before, we can have a maximum request of $7,500. Any idea how much this would cost? We
So-
also have to do a
7,500.
a 25% match. So really the total that we'd have available through this grant is 9,300 and change
It's going to be $7,500.
easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask, but then if it's 7,500, do we need $100,000 and then we provide 20, or there's another providing of 25 and then this is the 75, or is it 25% of 75?
This is $7,500. We would need to provide 25% match on top of that.
On top of that, okay, that's my question.
Yeah, so the total project would
Would
be
be 10.
9,300. Yeah.
So if we get the grant, the city puts up the 2,300, okay.
Yeah, 1,300, 1,800, yeah,
Oh, okay.
something like that.
All right, I didn't know, okay.
Numbers.
Oh, if it was 100, let's say 25%, with 70, okay, 75, all right.
My final question is on the scholarship grant. We can do a total of $5,000. And I talked to Jackie a little bit, and we're probably going to use the camp resources. I can't remember I got to it from SHPO, so it's good stuff. She said, okay, that one, and she recommended this one, and this one, but for this price, for $4,500, we can get 4 modules of virtual training for this commission and our new planner. So we've already chosen, and it's some of the essentials that they recommend anyhow, is meeting procedures, legal basics, and standards and guidelines for design renewal. And there are 9 other modules to choose from. And Jackie's not here to tell me, I've got a captive audience. If I throw out some names, if something sounds interesting, let me know, and we can kind of come up and pick up our last module.
Sorry to ask a clarifying question. Were those 3 different modules? Meeting procedures is one,
Yes,
legal is another,
legal basics and
design renewal is the
review.
third. Review. And so we need one more.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So here are the available topics. Why preserve? An introduction to historical preservation. Alternate materials. A design review exercise. And it envisions.
What was I got alternate materials, and what's the next one?
The design review exercise.
Design review exercise.
Is that it?
Nope.
Oh,
Envisioning infill design exercise.
Envisioning what?
Infill.
Infill.
infill, it's like what the EDDC is doing.
I'm sorry, say the word again.
Infill. Infill it. Like if you have 5 buildings in a row and you tear 2 out, what do you do with the space in the middle?
Okay.
How do you infill it?
Okay.
Enforcement and violations. Preservation planning. Identifying and designating historical resources.
What
Preservation,
was that one? I'm sorry.
identifying and designating historical resources.
Identifying and what?
Designating.
Designating.
Okay.
Preservation incentives and benefits. Community engagement and building public support.
Wow.
2 more. Resources of the recent past.
What was that of the recent past?
Resources.
Resources.
And the last one is kind of an open one. Specialty topics. If you're interested in a topic that's not listed so far, we can ask for one. They make suggestions of diversity, equity, and inclusion, demolition by neglect, reading architectural drawings, social media strategies, conservation districts.
Karen, can you have, send us the Jack one and she could email it to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I can send all of these to you and you can read them over and we
Did
can
you
take.
say, did you say the decision was made on the certain first ones, or?
When I spoke with Jackie, we looked at some of the basic ones that Bill Callahan, McLaren, suggested that.
And what were those again? I'm sorry, I know you said them.
That's all right.
Legal basics.
Legal basics, meeting procedures, standards, and guidelines for design review.
Okay, I got legal basis, standards and guidelines for
Design review,
design review, and then what was the middle one?
meeting procedures.
Meeting procedures. Okay.
So those covered his recommendations, but
Okay.
we've got
Okay.
a slot for another. So I will get your emails from Jackie or Aaron and send these out to you. We'll do an
Right, do they
email.
have like little descriptions of?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great.
Okay,
Okay?
And
Great.
who sponsors these modules?
That's SHPA.
SHPO?
SHPO.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Thank you so much for
Great,
your
great, thank
time
you.
and your help.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
If
Thank
you need any other input, if you can get our emails, you could always send something out if anything's needed to confirm or anything else.
Wonderful.
So you're going to send out like a little survey monkey or whatever that's called, like a little survey thing?
Oh, I could try that.
You
I
want
was
to do
just
that?
gonna
And we could
email
vote on the
thing
top
to you.
three and
All right.
1, 2, 3, and they'll pick it.
Yeah, if there's enough description, we could vote.
Because I like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. But I mean,
Yeah, there are a lot of them that I
Well,
think we need, but we only have.
if I could talk, I mean, to me, it's like almost like why preserve is almost more important than materials. I mean, we're just not there yet. I mean, I don't think that's a bad topic. I think it's an important topic. But I think at this phase, we need to be able to communicate to the people, the public, like, why are we doing this at all? Like right now. I think there's room to grow with another topic. I'm just having a conversation.
Sounds good.
Oh, I like a lot of these. So.
Yes. No, they're great. They're all good.
But maybe if I knew more, if I saw the description, that would.
Okay, I'll do that.
That'd be great.
Great.
If I can get that description in there. Otherwise, I'll send an email with a
Page after
document with the
page.
descriptions and then maybe a doodle poll or something to go with it.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you so
Excellent.
Okay.
much.
Thank you very
Karen.
much.
Okay. Well, that was the last topic for old business. If we want to move to new business now, the first time on the agenda was the designation of local landmark, the Erie Federal Complex. And I know we had some email discussion. I know the application information was sent out to all the members for review. I don't know if you want to start, Matthew. Do you want to talk about it first? Because that was your information, and thank you for putting that together.
Sure. Actually, I had sent a presentation over to Jackie. I know she's not here with us.
I would text her, but her phone is right there.
It won't do much good.
Would you want to just kind of walk through?
Yeah,
I think most people, I looked through it. I didn't read every word, but I looked through all the information and try to look at certain portions of it.
Well, it's had so much scrutiny for all the renovations it's done. I mean, I think it's a perfect example of what we want to do.
Yeah, it's really fortunate that the federal government was supportive of this. They've taken such good care, I think, of that entire block, which has very much changed over time. So I think we maybe need to start with some basics, though. So the application that's before us, it's for an individual landmark. So that even though that there are 3 historic resources that are part of the application, it's now one building.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So because it's one building, because there's one owner, and because it's one parcel, we need to consider it an individual landmark. As we all know, it's absolutely massive. It's a city block. But regardless,
Different time periods, all kinds of stuff there.
exactly that. So when you read through the nomination itself, the way that I had treated it was that each historic resource, each building had its own significance. So even though we're looking at it as one individual landmarks, the application reads as 3 distinct ones for the federal courthouse, for the public library, and then also for the Baker Building. And then I identified.
For the National Register,
Sure.
they're all individually registered?
That's interesting. 2 of them are, one of them is not. So the U.S. Federal Courthouse is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, as is the Public Library. The Baker Building is not. And the reason,
Which one is not?
the Baker Building,
The Baker Building, the clothing store.
the reason why it's not is because it's likely lost enough integrity where it would not be able to be listed individually on the register. So half the building has been demolished.
Yeah, more than half. Yeah, it used to be like this Art Deco kind of multiple floor. You could look at it, and it looked like a
Kinda
night.
walk in,
It looked
step
like a
in.
nightclub.
Yes.
You could be on the middle floor and see the top and the bottom floor all at the same time. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, unique.
And the
Had these
National Register,
railings.
they take into consideration building interiors as well. So the interior looks nothing like a department store today. It's run out as a post office. So for that reason, it hasn't been listed on the National Register, but the federal government has been treating the building as if it would contribute to a larger historic district, should one be created. So even though it isn't recognized formally, they're still treating it as if it is a historic resource, which is pretty exceptional. They understand, I think, the importance that it has to Erie's history of commerce, and also what the Baker family meant to the city of Erie, means to the city of Erie. So it's pretty exceptional. So when we're looking at it, again, we kind of go back to one resource. And when we're looking through the nomination, it's important to read not only the historic significances of kind of each of those, but that at our next meeting, be able to talk through kind of which of those we would want to recommend to City Council. So one of the other peculiarities of the nomination is it has a cover page on it that says, Historic Overlay District. That's the only form that we have at the moment as a commission. So we would need to basically take that form and either revise it so it's universally applicable for individual landmarks and for historic districts, or we need to create another form that's specifically for individual landmarks. So just so we have the nomenclature straight, and it doesn't get confusing. I know looking at it, you probably thought what is this? But that's exactly why. It's the only form that we currently have available and accessible.
Yep. Okay.
So.
So at the end of the day, would it be 3 separate buildings in our district or in our landmark, or are we treating it as one?
It's a really good question. We would treat it as one,
Okay.
and the federal government treats it as one as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're talking about a district, not really a building. We're designating districts.
Okay.
Right?
Well, part of the language, if you recall, our zoning is a historic overlay district.
District, yeah.
Zoning ordinance.
Yeah, because that's why the packet was, it's a building, but it was a.
But it's
a
3.
district.
Yeah, it's 5 addresses per
Yeah.
se.
Yeah.
Right. So we
That's why
really
we were
we need to work out some nomenclature issues so everyone's very clear, on the distinctions, because it's not a district. There's no multiple property owners. There's not multiple parcels. So it is distinct. It's very much like all of the other things that have come before the commission for consideration.
And question, I know there's a GSA letter in there, so there's been conversations, exchanges of letters. What was it, how did this originate, if you could quickly?
I called someone that I know that works at the GSA
Okay,
and asked them if they'd be at all interested.
and they were fully on board.
Yes, very much so. So they have, her name is Donna Andrews, and she's the historic preservation planner kind of for our region for the federal government. And she very much she does historic preservation work. So she was very excited to see that, that since the last time that she was in Erie, that we now have a commission and there are several more historic districts. In fact, they extended an invitation to all of us if we would like to go do a site visit. They would take us on a tour through each of the buildings. And in the conversations that I had with Donna and with the GSA, she's, in addition to being the federal government's historic preservation planner, she's also responsible for their art program.
Where's she located? Is she in Erie?
She's in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
But she would come out for it, and they have a building manager that would take us through. So one of the things that they asked is if we would like to find a date to do a walkthrough with them.
Oh, I think that'd be wonderful, and I mean, the library is so beautiful, they did such a fabulous job on it.
And we've had some very preliminary conversations as well about using some of the money that's set aside annually for art and art installations to reactivate the Baker Building's kind of, the plate glass windows that are there.
They did do like pop-up art displays in there, and it was successful.
Yeah. I know
PACA was involved in that.
one of the concerns that they had was climatization issues, because apparently the space that is kind of wraps those glass windows isn't climatized, so it'd have to be something
So
that's,
that's been the summer only.
well, or whenever it's sunny
February.
and 70 degrees
March.
out, yeah. But I think it would also be important to talk to them a little bit about maybe also restoring some integrity to the Baker Building. As you saw in the nomination packet, you used to have those wonderful, bakers kind of right on the parapet. And I wonder if it was something that they might consider doing as part of a restoration effort, next time that they have a project in the building. But no, it was, they're wonderfully supportive. It's really great to see that, now that we have all of this in the ordinance established, that, not just people, but governments are on board too. So
I wonder if it'd be possible to reach out to the Baker family. I mean, they're still offspring. The two brothers, were here, but they've passed. I don't think they're still alive, but they had kids.
they were a significant part of the
Oh
nomination.
gosh, and cool people.
And it was difficult to find historic photos of the current building. I think it was kind of ample available for the previous building that burned. That was kind of Second Empire.
Does the family have it? You said did you get them from the family, or?
No, there were some that I was able to get from just the internet and kind of glean, but I'm sure that if there are descendants, that they probably have a
might.
tremendous amount of.
Because I remember going to his office and he had
Resources.
photographs in his office, and he was a pilot. He had he was I think from Kentucky or something like that, and he was he made and flew planes, like little Cessnas and stuff like that. It was cool.
So,
He was a cool dude.
I don't know if perhaps at our next meeting, I could ask to schedule a site visit maybe before or after the meeting.
Let's do it.
We can invite some other
Would it
folks
be in
along.
April?
Yeah.
So what is the first Monday in April?
That's a good question.
Because I'm going to be traveling in April. I don't want to miss this.
Let's see. It would be April 1st.
Yep, April Fool's Day.
Oh, but it's also Easter Monday. I don't know if that's do we have a holiday then? And
I don't know.
It's okay with me.
me too. But if Erie City government's closed, then we might not have access to the building. You are? Okay. Got it.
Is that like there was a New Year's Eve that was on Sunday and we didn't get the Monday off? Is this like that?
I have no idea, but I'd love to do it in April. If we could do it in April.
What you get off for Easter is Friday. You get Good Friday off. You don't get
Monday
Easter's
also.
always on a Sunday.
Always.
It's true.
We'll look into that. And
I can,
we'll connect everybody. Into
yeah,
it.
I'll coordinate with them. I mean, because this would involve their schedule as well as, if she's able to book the trip. And if not, we can maybe look at May.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, back to the whole presentation. I mean, I know there was some discussion, emails about the procedure for this, and this is a city-sponsored. So does that change the process? I know. Thank you, Melinda, for sending through some of that procedure. Do we want to talk about that at all during the meeting, or kind of the next step for this?
Sure.
I know that a tour is of course a great thing. We definitely want to do that, but kind of next step in the process. And do we need to do anything different with the form? You're saying the form doesn't really address it. Do we need to do something with the form?
We definitely need to either modify the current form so it reflects it, or create another form for individual landmarks.
So our local registration needs new forms?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
So if you don't mind, the guidance that Linda had provided was, I had interpreted as specific to historic districts. There's language in our code under 705 criteria for designation. It's section B. It says, in the case of a nomination for a structure, site, or object, the nominator may be the owner of record. Nominations may also be an outcome of a preservation plan completed by the HRC and duly adopted by the City Council, which includes an inventory of historic resources within the city. It's the only language that's in the code that specifically relates to nominating a historic structure, site, or object. So in this case, I think that the federal government would be serving as nominator. I know I put the application together. I'm kind of acting on their behalf, but the letter that we received from them, they're clearly the nominator. I'm not quite certain kind of how we want to move forward with it, though. If we want to use this meeting to accept the nomination and then hold a public meeting at our next hearing, or if we want to look at this through a different lens.
Sure. Any input from anybody on this? And kind of I need to look through those procedures again to know exactly what the next step would be. Any input? I know Kathy, you're on the line. I don't know if it's appropriate to vote as accepting and then have the public hearing and then schedule a public hearing.
Can Kathy hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Leader, yeah.
Okay. I apologize, I couldn't hear Matthew at all, so I can't. I can follow up with Matthew directly, but I think the question was about process for the nomination. Okay. The Historic Review Commission does not have to hold a public hearing, which has a different notification requirement. It requires a stenographer there to take minutes. You are required to hold a public meeting, which you do every month. So it was my suggestion, and hopefully I'm answering some of your questions. It was my suggestion that at your regular meeting, you hold the public meeting. If I understand, you're going to get, are you getting feedback? Are you getting?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
Is that, I hear you're going to tour the building on April 1st?
If possible.
Is
Yep,
that
that's
what
what
I
we're
heard?
gonna
Okay. And then I would suggest in your regular meeting of probably May, that you hold the official public meeting that's identified in the zoning ordinance. That once you make a recommendation, and this I would imagine would be a nomination that's sponsored by the HRC themselves, is my suggestion, since Matthew has prepared the application. But then once you make your recommendation, it goes to the Planning Commission for a change to the zoning map. So there would be a public hearing involved in that process, which I think Matt and Mark, you've both gone through that process. Matthew, you just recently. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
I
can't hear
I
very
think so. I mean, it sounds like we, I don't know if we need to have make a motion to accept it so that we could have a public meeting, if that needs to occur. And we'll have the tour, and then in the May, have that meeting, have the public, meeting at that time. I don't know if we need to make a motion to that effect or not.
I don't know that we have done that in the past.
Okay.
Not that we,
We can do it.
it makes no difference, but I think the language needs to be clear. This is a nomination, so if you make a motion to accept the nomination, you are not voting to recommend it for the planning commission and ultimately
No,
city
no.
council review.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be clarification on the language that's used.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't know that we need to make a motion.
Okay.
It's a nomination that has come in.
Yep, just
The
asking.
nomination automatically triggers our process. So the process is, because the nomination was just received yesterday by the commissioners, right? It was on the agenda, which I'm not sure it was I don't know if the agenda was published 7 days prior to the meeting. So we can't necessarily consider this meeting the public meeting. So we can ultimately use the May meeting as our public meeting.
Right.
Or I'm
I
sorry,
think
April meeting.
you-
We could use the April meeting as our public
I-
meeting if we so chose to, and then vote at the May meeting.
I would suggest, I think what Melinda just said was you don't need to have a formal vote today. That is true. You have been officially notified of the request for designation, which will give you more than the 30 days that you need before your May meeting to make a recommendation, so that you would have an official vote at your May meeting.
Okay.
Is that what you said? Hopefully, Melinda, we were on the same page.
Yes, ultimately. So I'm actually suggesting, and I know you probably can't hear this, Kathy, but I'm actually suggesting that we use the April meeting of the HRC as the public meeting.
So I lost my connection.
And the
so I
May
can't hear
meeting
you at
as
all.
our
As the
actual
vote.
vote.
Sorry,
Yep, that
the phone
sounds
was
good.
fine. Oh, here's Jackie.
Sorry,
Oh,
Kathy.
I'm sorry.
I'm
She
sorry,
can't, she
Kathy.
can't hear us.
Hello? Yes.
I can do it again. I'm sorry. Try it again.
Okay, we'll do this again. Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you through the phone very well.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I was recommending is that we use the April meeting as our public meeting. So that the April meeting becomes our public meeting and we actually formally vote on the nomination at the May meeting.
Oh, okay. I think that works too. You just need to give yourself 30 days, and we don't have 30 days before your April meeting. I don't know, is your April meeting, you had mentioned the tour on the 1st. When is your April meeting?
They're saying the 1st of April.
Yeah, you technically don't have 30 days, but unless you, notification, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, is there a timeline, Matthew, or I can't see anyone now. I see myself multiple times, but Matthew, is there a timeline that's anticipated by DGS on this?
No, there's not. I think what's most important for us at this point is that we make sure all of our T's are crossed and I's are dotted to make sure that we're doing what's applicable within the ordinance. And I think that because this is only the 3rd time we've gone through this process, we should really take care to make sure kind of everything not only is being done properly, but if there need to be any changes made, because we're seeing friction in how it was written versus how it's applied, that we take note of that as well, and see if there's anything that we can update with language.
So I didn't hear any
Future.
of that, Melinda.
So all of that, so the short answer is it's what we've encountered over the last year and a half, which is hiccups with implementation, right? So the ordinance language is written in such a way that sometimes there is, it conflicts with actual implementation of the ordinance or how things actually play out in real time with the Historic Review Commission. And so Basically, what we need to do is a reconciliation. We need to make sure that we are in alignment with the ordinance, and or if we see revisions that are needed with the ordinance, that we certainly make note of those and pursue those when the opportunity arises. Because I believe we actually have written now in our historic preservation plan that will be formally adopted soon, hopefully, that the annual review of that ordinance is part of our responsibility. So as part of our annual review of the audit of the ordinance, we can continue to revise and improve as we see issues, again, with differences between how something is written and how something is implemented.
And I agree with you. Going back to my initial question, though, is there a timeline that needs to be followed? Is there a deadline? DGS says no. So Matthew's shaking his head no. I'm just saying, if there's no, since there is that 30 days in there, is there any downside to waiting until May? There is downside to wait till May. Because no,
So
there's
it
not.
says the public meeting must be scheduled within 30 days of the receipt of the nomination.
Oh, okay. So I'm
the-
sorry.
So the process is within 30 days of the nomination. The public meeting will be held, and so I'm not sure if that's the receipt of the nomination by the HRC, because if it is, then we are fine to hold the public meeting at our next regularly scheduled HRC meeting, because that will be exactly 30 days, because we literally just got the nomination. So
Okay. I think just for time's sake, I would be happy to review the regulations again and provide a recommendation on when the meeting should be held. That's in alignment, just so we don't have to necessarily make that determination tonight or today. Just give me a few minutes, a day or so to review, refresh. It's been a while since I looked at the ordinance. If you're comfortable with that, and then I'll make a formal recommendation to the HRC on how to proceed with this nomination.
Yep, that sounds good, Kathy.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else regarding the local landmark discussion? Any final?
only that I feel certain that we actually requested the inclusion of, so the nomination form just simply hasn't been updated. Again, a year ago, I know we had this conversation about the nomination form being focused on historic districts, and the fact that it also needed to include landmark buildings, structures, objects, and so that revision just was never made. So that was, again, over a year ago. We did have that discussion about making sure that nomination form was updated
Yep.
to include
Yep, I remember
language
that.
beyond the, thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, well, Matthew, thank you for presenting that, and it was a good discussion, and we'll look forward to Kathy's review and recommendation to kind of confirm what we discussed here today about having the April be the public meeting, and then May would be the vote on that. The last item on the agenda is the letter of support for the PHMC construction grant for the Cashier's House Area Art Museum. We were contacted, Jackie and Kathy contacted me because it was really, it was a timeline issue. So we had to quickly review the information. I think that it was due last Friday. So we quickly reviewed the information and got a letter together for them. And they were able to add that to their application. But the grant is for, they've had other various studies into the building. I'm sure everyone knows the building well. The Customs House, historic Customs House on State Street, which is the art museum. But they've had issues there over the years, and I think the latest item is kind of some water infiltration issues.
Is Cashier's House a restaurant now?
Yeah, I think
The Cashier's House is.
I think we're talking about the Customs House.
Customs House.
Yeah.
That's
Is
different.
that
Yeah.
art museum?
Customs House has those
okay.
steps in the front with the
Right.
color.
It's the art
The
museum.
Cashier's
Cashier's
House.
House is the.
I think it's just a point of clarification on the agenda, because on the agenda it's listed as Cashier's House, but on the letter of support it's listed as Customs House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's all right.
Which one is it?
Customs.
It's the
It is
customs.
the customs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
customs
think the
house.
museum owns the cashier's house
Well,
anymore.
right, I think they're
Right,
renting.
EDDC owns the
The
county.
EDDC owns.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, anyway, we wrote the letter and we sent it off to them, so, that's, I think hopefully we'll wish them good luck in their application for those monies to restore the building.
Sure. Is it a front steps issue with the water going in the front steps? Is that
I'm
what
not
it is?
exactly sure, I didn't see the exact report, but I know water infiltration, I'm
Mhm.
guessing that could be, Jack, I don't know if you know the exact water infiltration location?
Just whatever she provided in that small description.
That's a huge ongoing issue that they have, that
Yeah.
the ground underneath those marble stairs gets undermined because there's cracks and water gets down behind them and then lifts them, and it's really,
Yeah,
they've-
constant movement probably,
oh my gosh. I know it's a huge problem.
yeah.
So last year or the year before, the Historic Review Commission provided a letter of support for the Erie Art Museum's application seeking funding for a Keystone Historic Preservation Planning Grant. They contracted with professionals to help them develop basically a preservation and maintenance plan for the Customs House. So I would suspect that this is implementation now of said plan, which is typically how, right, this type of project would
Step by
function.
step.
I also want to note that the mayor did provide a letter of support for an application which is from an agency working within the city of Erie. The applicant, I did not understand necessarily the requirement of the application, which required a letter of support from the CLG program, which would actually be the Historic Review Commission. But they instead solicited a letter of support directly from the mayor's office, which was received, and they did submit that with their grant application. I just want to make note of that here.
Okay.
Okay?
This is more of an administrative question, but if you're going to be issuing more letters and other things, I'm going to do a historic review commission, and I don't even know if this is allowable, but it would make sense to, instead of coming from the office of the mayor on the letterhead, that it would come from, I mean, you could say City of Erie mayor's name, but if we could potentially get a letter where it says historic review.
We should. I mean, I noticed that when I saw the letterhead when you had forwarded me.
Right.
I thought for a second, oh, we need to have our own letterhead, definitely.
We could, I thought about putting on the departments, but that doesn't make much sense either, so, that's something that I can ask for them.
That would make sense.
I
So it's,
do have to make sure that's allowable, I don't know if other commissions and boards and councils have that, but for this, you're gonna be issuing those often, so I would think that would make sense. I'll find out.
yep.
I think official letterhead would be great.
Yeah, I know from what I've seen out of Philly and from Pittsburgh, they both have their own letterhead. Yeah.
I have a letter C that's not actually on the new business for, I wanted to give an update about the historic preservation planner. Can you all hear me okay? Sorry about
Yes,
that.
sure, go ahead.
So I wanted to let you know that that Heather Olson, she was offered and accepted the position of planner, historic preservation planner. So we do have a new hire.
Oh,
and
wow.
some- a
I'm
new-
sorry, who is it?
Her name is Heather Olson,
Uh-huh.
and she accepted the position for the historic preservation planner / planner.
Okay, great.
And she has a lot of experience. She's a landscape architect by trade. She's worked as a consultant. She's also worked as a teacher for some time. She was very, very, very prepared for the interview. She had read the entire historic preservation plan, the draft, when she came to the interview. She was actually quoting from it, going through it. She had read Erie Refocused. I mean, she was connecting the dots immediately, and her attitude and her behavior and her demeanor, to me, was exactly what was needed. Somebody who's going to be the face of this program, going to be out there able to champion for this priority of the city. So that really, while she is not as versed in historic preservation as maybe Chris Kinder may have been, coming into this position. She's worked with planners, she's worked with architects, she's worked with historic preservation, she's worked with the environmental concerns, so she understands the big picture. We already have talked to her about possibly getting her some training, as you see through the CLG grant. Even talking with some of you would be great. Kathy Rosdek mentoring her a little bit. All of that, we will make sure that she's provided with that and she can learn that world and be comfortable to speak that language. So she starts on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And I hope that we'll be able to get her integrated pretty quickly. I'll make sure to send an introductory email out to you all when she starts, and I think it'd be great for you to meet with her one-on-one. I'm happy to set that up if you'd like, so that maybe the first week she can even meet with you one-on-one. I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, and it's Heather, what's your last name?
Heather Olson, Olson. Olson.
Okay.
And this is as a
With the
side note,
Folgers,
she's
right?
also an
Folgers
artist.
Coffee was Mrs. Olson.
She's an artist as well.
Awesome.
So she does have a website that talks about her a little bit if you feel like Googling her. But I'm really excited. I'm excited for you guys that you'll have a hopefully great week.
Super.
Yeah. So this may be my last time sitting in staff lead. I'm assuming Kathy will continue to some degree, and we'll see how that partnership will work. But I'll probably come a few times still just to help her get situated.
So April, she'll be here.
No, next week.
Oh, well, I mean,
April,
but she'll be at our
yes.
next meeting, of
Yes.
course.
Right,
She
but
will.
we can be meeting with her one-on-one.
Yeah, I think maybe the first week or two, I can start setting up. It'd be nice for you to sit down and talk with her.
Would it make sense to, again, everybody can do what they want to, we just have a schedule, a Zoom discussion, and we could all meet at the time, and instead of having 5 meetings, or we could have 5 meetings if we want to. I'm just trying to simplify it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever is gonna work best. We could do maybe maybe 2 smaller groups might work.
Sure.
Yeah, we could do that too.
I'm just trying to think how to simplify it, so it's not like we're scheduling 5, 6 meetings, so.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily need to be an hour, maybe they're 15, 20
Sure.
minutes, even just to talk through, give her your background and experience and, some of the historical knowledge that you have that would be great for onboarding somebody at
Yeah.
City Hall, which we don't typically do that great of a job, so it'd be really nice. Luckily, Kathy is on board with us and she can provide that as well, so,
Great.
so yeah.
We do-
That's great
I'll
news.
think through that a little bit more and then reach out to you all.
Okay.
Yeah, we do need to be cognizant that we can only be 2 of us at a
Oh,
time,
yes, I know.
right?
That's true. They can only be 2, right? And then you go
Exactly.
yes.
Okay.
So it would be, it could only be, it'd be 3 times, 3 groups. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it for our agenda. Would anyone make a motion to adjourn?
I make such a motion.
Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody.